Everyone, welcome to today's episode of Talk Talk. Today, we're gonna discuss about the best practices of goal settings, which is an integral part of any performance management system. And we have Mr. MP Sriram with us today. So let me tell you all about him a little. He is a people and performance and change consultant who enables organizations and individuals and helps them to articulate and sustain changes to realize meaningful goals. He's also a founding partner at Aventus Partners since 2007, and he leads the people performance and change consulting practice and has been pursuing his purpose for over 26 years through interventions that address various organizational, business, and people challenges. Mr. Sriram also devotes time in helping co-owners and key people understand and do the right things that will prevent differences becoming conflicts and resolve them in the unfortunate event of escalation. Mr. Sriram has a bachelor's degree in law from Pune University and a post-graduation diploma in personal management and industrial relations from XLRI Jamshedpur and secured gold medals in both these institutions. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me on your program, and I am glad to answer any questions that you would have, and let's just go ahead with the discussion.
Okay. Okay, so basically today's topic is goal settings, which I have already mentioned that is it's a very important part of any performance management system. So shall I just jump into the questions?
Feel free to just go ahead and shoot whatever you want to know, and I'm happy to share whatever I can.
Okay. So in your opinion, should goal settings be a collaborative process between managers and employees? If yes, then why?
Wonderful. So yes, I think it actually should be very much so a collaborative process, right? While in reality, in many organizations, it's not necessarily so. In my opinion, an effective goal setting process necessarily has to be a collaborative process, because at the end of the day, it's an iterative process. It's not a diktat which can be handed over from the top, right? So it's necessarily got to be collaborative and iterative. And if you look at it, the goals are only a culmination of a continuous ongoing process that actually incorporates insights, trends from the markets, trends from the customers, as well as the insights that employees glean from various sources. And it's actually a double loop feedback and a learning process. So the bottom up feedback that the organization obtains and the inputs that are provided by that process actually plays a very significant role in finalization and setting of the goals. And my experience and learning has been that the larger the organization, the greater is this need for this process to be collaborative, and the greater is the need for this process to be robust. Because people sitting at the top may not necessarily have insights in terms of what's necessarily happening on the ground. The larger the organization, the more distant possibly they are from the ground. And in addition to all this, I think that being a collaborative process is the only way in which you can actually ensure that people are actually committed to the goals that they are undertaking to deliver on. So yes, I think it's a big yes from my side, and it's got to be a collaborative process. There are challenges for sure, but yes, it's got to be a collaborative process.
Okay, thank you so much. Beautifully stated. So the next question will be, how important is goal cascading and the need to tie every employee's goals to an organizational objective? And is it always practical and effective?
Okay, so if you look at it, what's a goal? A goal in its essence is actually a commitment that an individual is making. A commitment that or a solemn promise that a person is making to himself, a person he's making to his significant stakeholders and to the larger organization at large. Take the example of a CEO of an organization, for example. Let's say the CEO is giving a revenue guidance or a profitability guidance, right? He could either be giving this for the year, for the quarter, and the world at large, including, let's say, his key stakeholders. It could be the investors, it could be the analysts, it could be the board. They take him or her on face value and on that word. Now, for that goal to be achieved, it's absolutely imperative that every employee in the organization who contributes has to have his or her goal and actions aligned to achieving these overall goals. So therefore, cascading again is essential. I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Cascading is essential. But having said that, my understanding and experience again has been that every organization, in addition to its two biggest goals typically, which is in terms of revenue and profitability or margins, has 4 or 5 key goals at an organizational level. And it's alignment of every single employee to these key goals in terms of how they impact these goals, which is extremely important. But at the same time, like I mentioned in my response to your earlier question, the process of how you go about actually finalizing these goals plays a very, very significant role in actually improving the probability of goal achievement. So I think the more collaborative the process, the greater would be the probability of achievement. Sure, it's actually a very, very time-consuming process if you go about doing it this way. But like every other good and effective organizational process, that's the only way in which you can actually go about doing it. Now, the second part of your question, is it actually practical to do this, right? You have cases of many an organization who are actually and successfully incorporating all this into their culture. So in terms of cascading it, in terms of ensuring that there are conversations which happen around goal setting, there are many an example of organizations. Yes, sure, it remains a challenge for some organizations, right? But if you look back at it, isn't that what actually an effective organizational structure and culture is supposed to achieve? So again, my answer to this question is, I think goals need to be cascaded because that's the only way in which we are going to be able to honor the organizational words that we are going to be giving to the larger world.
Of course, of course. So, do you think sub goals are essential to set effective goals for the employees? Again, if yes, then why?
Okay, so goals are actually just a starting point. So if you look at it, the process of goal achievement actually includes a whole host of sub-activities. And sub-goals possibly are just one of these sub-activities which are involved in that process. So actually, it's a series of sub-goals which, when achieved, leads to actually the achievement of the main goals, right? So that's the way I look at it. So if I step back and look at the larger picture, what all go into the process of goal achievement? So in addition to having sub-goals and micro-activities, I think a few other things which are important are actually knowing what is the purpose behind this goal. So for example, if customer satisfaction is a goal, why is it that we are trying to achieve some customer satisfaction? Let's not assume that it's understood by everyone. The other key component is actually making a rolling action plan, not just an action plan, but an action plan which continuously evolves towards helping you achieve that goal. Possibly keeping a record of all the actions and the results that you're obtaining from these micro actions, because that's what's going to tell you how well a certain action has contributed to achieving that sub goal, or how a particular action has not contributed to achieving that sub goal, so that corrective action can be taken. Frequently, not just reviewing, but I would actually use the word foreviewing, so that we are able to assess the status and possibly the probability of goal achievement, so that we are able to take actions well before we fall short of achieving that goal. And as a concomitant to that process, resetting one's mind when one's actions don't produce the necessary or the desired result towards achieving those sub goals also is a significant component of this process of goal achievement. Now, it's quite possible, right, that some of these sub goals don't necessarily figure in the scorecards of the individual role holder who holds the main goals. But then if you look at the way an organizational system functions, all these sub goals will in effect become and should actually be the key goals of some of those team members who report into this main goal holder. So to that extent, I think sub goals are extremely important, right? and they actually help you in this process of goal accomplishment. So maybe you can actually take a very simple example and try and illustrate this. Retention is a burning issue today, especially in the technology sector. So if you look at it in the last 7 or 8 months, right, post the first wave of pandemic, you have had a situation wherein technology companies who traditionally, let's say, have had a 25-26% kind of annual attrition, today talking about or struggling with 40 to 45% attrition. So let's say that the head of HR or the COO of the organization has a goal of bringing it back to what it was during earlier times, or even at least trying close to it, let's say 30%. Right? Now, just having a goal of 30% retention is not going to help you with that cost. You will need to take a whole host of sub-actions which are actually going to contribute towards achieving that goal of retention, right? And these sub-actions actually can become part of your micro strategy, right? So there could be various levers that you could use. You could look at possibly looking at compensation. Maybe the market has become far more aggressive in terms of its compensation. You might want to look at in terms of skilling opportunities, in terms of role opportunities of people. So it's a whole host of factors and sub-activities. And there could be different stakeholders in the system who are actually owning each of these sub-goals, right? So to that extent, I would say sub-goals are extremely important. But having said that, they are just one part of the process of goal accomplishment, right? So goal, to sum it up, goal is not the end point. Goal is just a starting point, right? And sub goals actually help you take appropriate corrective action in case you're going to be falling short of achieving those sub goals so that your end goal is achieved. I hope that gives you a perspective on that.
Yeah, sure. It's like as kids, when we were reading about various chapters and topics, we used to learn sub chapters and topics to help us understand the actual topic better. So it's the same with the goal settings process as well, I guess.
Sure. So let me take you another very simple example. Let's say something that most of us can relate to, at least people in my age group can relate to for sure, right? Most of us struggle with health issues. Most of us want to, let's say, reduce weight by a good few kilos. So let's say you have taken on a goal of reducing your weight by 10 kilos, right? Now, how do you measure whether you're moving towards that goal, right? So there could be some activities. One could be in terms of monitoring your diet, right? So you could say, I'm not going to consume more than X calories in a day. One could be in terms of your exercise. So you say, I walk X number of steps in a day. One could be in terms of saying that maybe I spend a few minutes doing some other healthy activity. So it's these sub goals. So if I know on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, I'm making progress on these sub goals, I know that I'm making progress towards the main goal, right? Yeah. So that's the best way for me to illustrate that.
Yeah, sure. So moving on to the next question. How should zero target goals be measured for performance in an organization?
Okay. Let me be sure I understand what you mean by a zero target, right? So a zero target, I'm assuming, is a goal that you're saying tends towards a zero, right? Is that what you mean by a zero target?
Yes.
Okay, fair. So let's take an example of a zero target. Let's say defect rates could be a zero target, right? Customer complaints could be a zero target.
Absolutely.
Having said that, my learning and experience has been that it's very, very difficult and rare for an organization to actually achieve a zero target consistently, right? Take the example of customer complaints. While it's nice to say that I might have a target of zero customer complaints, customer preferences are evolving, right, on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. We are all human beings. We might not be at our best every single day, right? I could be at my best in the morning. I might have had a bad afternoon for whatever reasons, right? So having a zero target, I don't think is a, so you can have a target which might be tending closer to zero. So for example, you had the Six Sigma concept, right, which cropped up 20 years back, which I think is a wonderful example. Six Sigma did not talk about zero defect. Six Sigma talked about one defect, let's say, in a million. So you're talking about reducing the number of complaints. You're bringing it as close to zero as possible, right? But zero, I think, would be a pipe dream. right? So that's my sense on zero targets, because otherwise you would be placing very, very unrealistic expectations on your people. And like I said at the outset, you need people to believe in these goals. You need people to believe that these goals are possible, doable, achievable, in their control, and that they are able to impact the same. So yes, a zero goal is nice to talk about, but I think a more sensible way would be to have a goal which is more realistic. So like a Six Sigma, but it's got to be customized to your context.
Yeah. Okay. Our last question.
Yeah.
Well, the second last one. Should all goals be measurable?
Okay. Should all goals be measurable? Now, okay. I think all goals need to be measured and should be measured and can be measured, right? Now, there are two reasons why I say this. One, finally, it's individuals who deliver on these goals. So I think it's extremely important that an individual understands and knows as clearly as possible what is it that he or she is setting out to achieve, or what is it that is expected from an individual. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of fuzziness and ambiguity. The other reason is that in my books, a goal is necessarily essential for improvement of the individual, improvement of the system, improvement of the overall organizational process. And therefore, I think goals need to be measurable. Goals need to be measured. Goals need to have a target around it. But having said that, goals can be subjective, goals can be objective, but nevertheless, there's got to be a very, very clear goal which tells a person this is what you are trying to move towards.
Okay. So how do you incorporate measurable parameters to otherwise subjective goals?
Okay. So let's try and understand what is a subjective goal.
Okay.
Right? So you can have two things. You can either have something which is a fact, right? Which is what many of us loosely call as objective. Now, an objective goal or a fact is something which cannot be disputed, on which you possibly cannot have two alternative opinions. A subjective goal, which can also be called as a non-fact, is something on which you can have two differing opinions for the same set of circumstances or incidents. Now, take for example something like customer complaint. Take for something like customer satisfaction, employee engagement. For that matter, any human experience is essentially at the core of its subjective. We try and provide a certain level of objectiveness to that subjectivity while we are trying to measure that subjectivity through whatever tools, right? So you might have a customer satisfaction rating scale, right? The most common thing that we are all familiar with, wherein after an experience, we are asked to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. But essentially what we are trying to do is provide a mathematical number to an experience which is essentially subjective. So the same experience that two of us, let's say that you have undergone and that I have undergone, you might rate the same experience at 9 on 10, I might rate the same experience as 5 on 10, right? So essentially there is going to be any human experience is bound to be subjective. All that we are trying to do is bring in a certain level of mathematical or numerical quantification to the subjective experience, right? So it's actually subjectivity guised in the garb of objectivity. So if you are able to understand and appreciate that, still there is huge value in the same, right? Rather than saying we will overall improve customer experience, and so we need to take whatever data comes to us on face value rather than dispute and contest it, saying that they have a very, very skewed opinion of reality. But the truth of the matter is that is their perception, and perception is what matters. And therefore, to that extent, I would say measuring subjectivity and providing a mathematical number to any subjective experience, I think will only help in terms of improving performance levels and improving overall levels of delivery in a system.
Okay. Thank you so much for participating in today's session of our Top Talk. And I'm really glad that I got to know about so many things from you. And I'm sure that our viewers have also learned something really important, learned about some fresh perspective from this talk. And yeah, I'm really honored that you have spared your valuable time and joined the discussion with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.